When we talk about peace, especially in the context of Israel and Palestine, we are not just speaking about one strip of land in the Middle East. We are touching on a question that has haunted humanity for generations. Is lasting peace between deeply divided peoples ever truly possible? The conflict between Israel and Palestine has become a symbol of struggle, pain, displacement, and resilience. It has also become a mirror for the world, because what we see there is not unique. It reflects global tensions between communities, between nations, and between the ideals of justice and the realities of power. Let's start with the facts. Today, out of 193 member states of the United Nations, around 157 have formally recognized the state of Palestine. This is a majority of the world. Yet political recognition does not translate into peace on the ground. In recent Gallup surveys, about 66% of Israelis and 68% of Palestinians said they believe a permanent peace will never be achieved. That's not just pessimism. That's despair rooted in decades of unmet promises and repeated cycles of violence. Economically, the gap is staggering. Before the recent war escalated, Israel's GDP per capita was already more than 14 times greater than that of the West Bank and Gaza. Today, the Gaza economy has shrunk by about 85% in just 1 year. Per capita output in Gaza is now almost 95% lower than in the West Bank. This is not simply an economic statistic. It is a reflection of destroyed infrastructure, lost livelihoods, and a generation growing up with little hope of opportunity. Now, let's zoom out. Why is this conflict so significant to the rest of the world? First, because it has drawn in nearly every major power at one time or another. The United States provides billions of dollars in aid to Israel every year. The European Union debates sanctions and diplomacy. The Arab League has long stood in solidarity with the Palestinians, and in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, public opinion overwhelmingly favors Palestinian statehood and self-determination. Second, because this conflict fuels global instability. Refugee crises spill across borders. Extremist groups exploit the suffering to recruit. And trust in international institutions, like the UN, weakens every time peace talks collapse without progress. Globally, peace processes are not new. South Africa overcame apartheid through negotiation, justice commissions, and a vision for reconciliation. Northern Ireland moved beyond decades of sectarian violence through the Good Friday Agreement, built on compromise and power sharing. Even Colombia, after more than 50 years of conflict with FARC rebels, reached a peace deal in 2016. None of these examples are perfect. Violence and distrust persist. But they show that peace is possible when justice and compromise are both on the table. The question is, can Israel and Palestine find such a path? The Quran acknowledges that conflict is part of human history, but it also repeatedly calls humanity to higher ground. In Surah Al-Hujurat, chapter 49, verse 9, it says, "And if two groups of believers fight, make peace between them. But if one of them oppresses the other, then fight against the one that oppresses until it returns to the command of Allah. And if it returns, then make peace between them in justice and act justly. Indeed, Allah loves those who act justly." This verse captures both realism and hope. Conflict will happen, but peace is the obligation. And not peace built on silence or dominance, but peace built on justice. Because without justice, peace is just the absence of sound, not the presence of healing. When we look at global data, we see that peace agreements succeed not when one side dominates, but when both sides feel dignity and fairness. According to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, about half of all civil wars since the 1970s ended with a negotiated settlement rather than outright military victory. The chances of those settlements lasting more than a decade increased dramatically when international mediators ensured fairness, accountability, and economic reconstruction. Here is another global perspective. Today, the number of forcibly displaced people in the world is over 120 million, the highest in recorded history. Palestinians make up a large share of this. Since 1948, more than 5.9 million Palestinian refugees have been registered with UNRWA. This makes them one of the longest-standing refugee populations in the modern era. And yet, global refugee crises remind us that Palestinians are not alone. Syrians, Afghans, Sudanese, Congolese, all share this burden of displacement. In Surah Al-Mumtahana, chapter 60, verse 8, Allah says, Allah does not forbid you from those who do not fight you because of religion, and do not expel you from your homes, from being righteous toward them and acting justly toward them. Indeed, Allah loves those who act justly. This verse emphasizes fairness even with those different from us. How much more, then, must fairness apply to those who share the same land and destiny? But achieving fairness requires courage. Globally, we see what happens when courage is missing. In Myanmar, the Rohingya crisis continues because no government dares to fully confront the injustice. In Sudan, ceasefire agreements collapse again and again because leaders put power above peace. But in places where courage met vision, like Rwanda's post-genocide rebuilding, the result has been remarkable healing and economic growth. For Israel and Palestine, courage would mean acknowledging truths long denied. For Israel, recognizing that Palestinian dignity and self-determination are not optional. For Palestinians, recognizing that security and coexistence with Israelis are essential. For the world, courage means not looking away or reducing this to a regional issue. The Quran in Surah An-Nisa, chapter 4, verse 135, delivers a principle that speaks directly to this. O you who have believed, be persistently standing firm in justice, witnesses for Allah, even if it be against yourselves or parents and relatives. Whether one is rich or poor, Allah is more worthy of both. So follow not personal inclination, lest you not be just. And if you distort or refuse, then indeed Allah is ever acquainted with what you do. This is the divine call, justice above bias, above politics, above fear. So is peace possible? History tells us yes. Data tells us with justice, yes. Faith tells us peace is not only possible, it is required. The path is long, but no people are destined for endless war. As Surah Al-Anfal, chapter 8, verse 61, reminds us, and if they incline to peace, then incline to it also, and rely upon Allah. Indeed, it is He who is the hearing, the knowing. The world is hungry for reconciliation. From Colombia to South Africa, from Northern Ireland to Rwanda, we see that humanity can move from hatred to hope. Israel and Palestine are not exceptions to this truth, but it will require more than negotiations on borders. It will require a reimagination of what justice looks like, what coexistence feels like, and what courage means for leaders and citizens alike. Because peace is not built by politicians alone. It is built by people who choose to see the other not as enemy, but as neighbor. It is built when children can dream without fear, when economies offer dignity to all, and when faith inspires compassion rather than division.